need to understand, Mr. Reese. You need to know what it would be like to be forced to listen to someone get murdered.
12 August 2008.
Too late.
Bad things happen to people every day. You can't stop them.
What if you could? After the attacks, the government gave itself the power to read every email, listen to every cell phone. But they needed a machine to sort through it all, to pick the criminals out of the general population.
So how do you know about it?
I built it. I've got a list of people who are about to be in very bad situations. They might be the victim. They could be the perpetrator. I want you to figure out what's going to happen and stop it from happening.
Have a nice day.
6 cover identities, just like when you were with the agency.
It's happening now.
The names never stop coming. I'm offering you a chance to be there in time.
Hi everyone and welcome once again to Geekfest Rants. Today we have let's call it a mid-season recap or an end-of-year, beginning-of-year summary of some of the shows we're interested. Joining me today is Tony. Say hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
That's Tony. We've done an episode like this a couple months ago, but this time we have a couple of new shows that we didn't address last time, and we want to update everybody on some of the shows that we did touch upon last time that we've had a little more of a chance to watch, and the storylines have progressed way further than last time.
The mid-season finales have aired, so we can kind of get a better gauge of where they are and where they're going.
Right. Hopefully they will be going. Let's begin with one of the shows that I wasn't too crazy about originally, called Once Upon a Time. And this
You're crazy,
is a show,
Perone. You're crazy.
This is a show that a lot of people have embraced since the beginning.
Yes.
And one of the reasons, obviously, is the people involved in making the show. Some of these are ex-Lost writers, correct?
Yes, correct. That is correct. I watched it at first because they were ex-Lost writers creating the show, but it hooked me from the first episode because I thought the premise was interesting, the characters were interesting, the storytelling was really good, and I think a hero story is only as good as its villain. And in The Evil Queen, Regina, they really created somebody who's a real, like I said, a villain, but yet every once in a while, she comes across as a real person. You see just a touch of humanity, but then she goes to the opposite extreme and is a total witch.
Yeah, the thing with that character is you're trying to figure out what is she up to in terms of she did something to cross from the fairy tale world to the real world, or this sub-real world. The times when you mentioned before where she is acting somewhat nice, it's like, is this her plan? Is her goal to live in this town, obviously to control everyone, because she's the only one that has the knowledge of what really happened to her town or the people? But it's like, is she trapped in this town too? Or is she really in charge of this town? What's the deal with her?
Well, the premise being that the evil queen in the fairy tale world wanted to get revenge on Snow White and Prince Charming to cause them misery, and as a result, she made a deal with Rumpelstiltskin to enact this curse, which would transport the entire fairy tale world to what is now Storybrooke, Maine.
A town in our world.
In our world, though they seem to not be able to leave it.
And they also
Except for Henry, who is the little boy who comes to get Emma, who is Snow White's daughter, who is transported from fairy tale world to this world, but is not in Storybrooke.
Right, the little boy is Snow White's grandson.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. The other thing is that nobody seems to remember. Every now and then you have conversations where it's like, do you remember where we met? And like, no, I don't remember where we met.
And it doesn't faze them.
And then it's kind of like they change the conversation. It's like, change the subject. Whoa. Go back to that. Think about it some more.
To me, one of the big hooks, again, with Regina, the queen, who is the mayor of the town of Storybrooke, is how badly she wanted to get revenge on Snow White. And in order for the curse to be enacted, she had to sacrifice the thing she loved the most, which turned out to be her father.
But not only is her father, there was another twist recently.
Well, yeah, but the initial curse was enacted. She had to kill her own father, which, for her, the hate was stronger than love, which is an interesting motivating factor than for any character. And then this past, recently, on the mid-season finale, we learned that the huntsman who she hired to kill Snow White in the fairy tale world decided to have sympathy for Snow White, killed a deer instead, presented the queen with the deer heart. She knew that it was not really Snow White's heart, so she punished him and ripped out his heart, not as graphically as Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but
No flaming heart.
but she ripped it out and put it in a vault and said she now controls his life. And in Storybrooke, Maine, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the mid-season finale, just go la 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 for a while and cover your ears. He was, the sheriff, who was the huntsman, was starting to remember his past life, and she took his heart out of the vault and crushed it, thereby killing him.
Well, we don't know for sure.
Well,
He collapsed and then.
Well,
we
I
don't
did
know.
read that they were going to kill a
main
character.
character?
Yeah, so I said Sheriff Graham is now the Boone of Once Upon a Time. If you're comparing this series to Lost, which I think I am.
Well, and again, it's tough to kind of follow the story if you're thinking back to fairy tales you do know, because it's hard to figure out how much are they going to follow them, to the letter. The huntsman, from what I remember, I believe that the character of the huntsman was in the Snow White Disney film. Similarly, he felt sorry for her and pretended to kill her, presented a deer heart to the witch, the queen, and then she eventually figures it out. I don't remember what happens to the huntsman in the Disney film.
Right.
I don't know if they're following or if they're using, very creative license to how to deal with him after it's found out that he did not kill her.
Yeah, well, I need to rent Snow White again, because I haven't seen it probably in 30 years, so I don't remember any of that. But, I mean, it's also the fact that this is an ABC show. Disney owns ABC, so they can take whatever license they want. And I thought I read they were considering putting Ariel, like the Little Mermaid, in some...
God.
I forgot who she's going to play, but Claire from Lost is going to be playing a character come February.
Wow.
So there's definitely Lost parallels in terms of the parallel world storytelling.
Well, here's another point that I recently watched. One of the things they were implying, I think, if I remember right, was that Snow White is the stepdaughter of the witch.
I guess I seem to kind of remember that from the fairy tale. Well,
'Cause
isn't that why she wanted to kill Snow White?
Well, because the stepdaughter thing is more of a Cinderella thing. That's the stepdaughter and the stepsister and the stepmother. She lives with the stepmother.
But why did the evil queen want to kill Snow White in the original fairy tale?
I
don't
think it was
either.
more of a she's the prettiest, so I have to kill the prettiest. I don't know if there was any family connection between these characters, but here they're purposely, I think, whether it's original or not, I don't know, connecting these two. They're giving them another connection, so they're slowly giving you more of a reason why there's this hate. And I guess as you progress in the season, they're going to tell you more detail of what is this rift between her and the father and the daughter.
Well, the queen did reveal that Snow White betrayed her. She betrayed a secret and somehow caused her to lose the one person she loved. So we're going to see how that plays out.
I thought she was implying her father was the one that she caused to...
Well, no, I don't. I think at that point, her father was still alive. She didn't kill her father until after Snow White is married to Prince Charming in order to enact the curse.
I don't know. Again, they're giving it to you in little bits and pieces.
There's
Every episode,
definitely,
they
a
drop,
time...
the clues.
I like Jennifer Morrison as Emma. She does a good job playing Snow White's daughter, and she's the real heroine of this, and she has a nice chemistry with the boy, Henry.
I'll tell you what some of the potential pitfalls are. The typical thing where somebody's about to learn something, and at the last second, they'll pull back. And, like, for example, the huntsman all of a sudden started remembering things.
Yeah.
And then they heard him, or they killed him. I don't know. And even Prince Charming was starting to remember certain things. And then it all kind of came crashing down on him again.
Right.
It's like, one step forward, two steps back.
Well, I mean, that's one of the pitfalls of, writing a series, that you don't know how long it's going to last and stretching the story. But I mean, I think they're still on solid ground now. But I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the season somebody else remembers something. I mean, Jiminy Cricket, who is the town psychiatrist, therapist, whatever, I thought he was going to be the one who remembers the past, but they didn't quite go there. But he's definitely more sympathetic to how things are going with Emma and Henry.
My favorite character is Robert Carlyle's character.
Rumpelstiltskin?
I love that I love the actor, and I love how he is so over the top when he's Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
And he's a little toned down when he's Mr. Gold.
Yes.
But still, he's just a great actor. I love him in everything I see him. And here, again, whenever he's in the Rumpelstiltskin mode, it's ridiculous how over the top it is, but it's just...
You buy it.
It's so enjoyable
It's compelling.
watching him, he's having so much fun in that role, and it's great. It's wonderful.
And Jennifer Goodwin as Snow White is also very good. She definitely plays the innocent. Her Storybrooke name is Mary Margaret, and she comes across, well. I'm not sure who the diner people are.
Well, somebody was telling me that the waitress is Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh, is that who she's supposed to be?
Because she's always wearing red. Now, why is she so, slutty? I don't know where that comes from. And I guess that's what they're going to do is they're going to slowly start showing you these characters one at a time. So I'm sure you're going to get a whole episode about her.
Yeah.
All these main characters in the background. The newspaper owner, he's a pretty well-known actor. We're going to get something about him, who's also the guy in the mirror.
Yes.
He's that same guy.
Well, they've got enough characters probably that they can stretch out the backstories and everything.
The whole story with Prince Charming's parents and the fact that he's not Prince Charming even.
That was a shock.
And the guy from Lost, Mr. Whitmore, was the father.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, he's such a bastard.
Yeah.
King Midas. It's like, wow, they're really going out there in different, stories.
And again, just with the Lost connections, they do inject, little Lost connections there.
Well, like I said before, this is a show that at first I was kind of lukewarm about. And it's funny, at first, when I first started watching the show, my biggest complaint was that I really liked the real world events and I wasn't crazy about the fairy tale world. To me, it was too jarring from a credibility perspective, having to jump back and forth between fairy tale and real, fairy tale and real. It was very distracting to me. Now I'm finding that I am really getting more interested in the fairy tale world. It's becoming more interesting.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, sometimes I wish we would go back there instead of the present world. I'm not going to say this is my favorite show, but it is starting to grow on me slowly, more and more as I see it.
I will say that it is my favorite current show on television.
After Walking Dead, right, Tony?
I've never seen Walking Dead. But
well, let's take a little jump over to Fox with Fringe.
Well, technically, I just throw this in since we were looking for a connecting point for this. All the shows we are discussing today are somehow connected to Lost or J.J. Abrams.
You're right.
So, since we're talking about Fringe, show created by J.J. Abrams, when this season started, I have to admit the first episode back left me a little cold. Just because season 3, to me, was by far the best season of the show so far. It was like the entire season was part of the arc of, these two worlds fighting and everything. Even when there was a little standalone mystery, it still played a part in connecting everything. And the characters are relating well, and Peter and Olivia have a relationship, and Walter's cool, and all this. And then when this season started, it was like they hit the reset button.
They did, story-wise.
Yeah.
To me, I kind of understood what was happening, or I understood where they were heading, but it was still very jarring and confusing because I'm like, wait a minute, why is this guy here? What happened to this other world? Why are they collaborating with each other?
Yeah.
It was a little weird. And, I had to remind myself, wait a minute, they changed the past and it affected everything now.
Essentially, everything that had happened from the time young Peter died as a boy, everything transpired differently.
Right.
So the first episode back left me a little cold. Like I said, I knew what they were doing.
Yes.
But then I think as the show progressed, I kind of got a lay of the land. The characters started to get more interesting. I like the addition of Lincoln Lee in this world. He's a really good character, likable. There really hasn't been that much crossover between the two worlds. They were getting to it a little bit more lately.
Right.
But what have you thought of it so far?
Yeah. For me, it was the same thing. And the first thing was like, when is Peter coming back? When is Peter coming back? And you kind of knew that sooner or later, they had to bring Peter back. And it took them almost the entire 3/4 of the first half of the season to bring him back. And then once he's back, he has to convince everybody of who he is and what he's doing, and everybody has to understand what the deal is. But we still don't know how he's going to fix things.
Well, see, I don't know. I thought I understood it, but now I'm not sure after the last episode or two. I thought that Peter had reset his world, but the way they're talking now, it sounds like he has reappeared in a different world. So I don't know if that's accurate, if he's just guessing he's in a different world.
Well, no, the premise of the show, when you lay out your time travel, if you will, rules of whoever happens to be the writer of the show, this particular show deals with multiple parallel universes.
Of 2 parallel universes so far.
Well, because we've only seen 2. However, I have a feeling that whatever we're seeing now is not going to be
one of those 2.
This is the 3rd universe we're in right now. It's a parallel time where things are different. I don't think that you are going to base the entire show now going forward based on what's happening now.
But the problem with that is, if Peter's sacrifice didn't really reboot everything, then wouldn't the other 2 worlds still be in danger of destructing?
Depends if the 2 worlds are still connected to each other and they're able to interfere with each other like it has up to the last season, where these 2 worlds are always overlapping. You know, they're bleeding into each other.
Right, right.
I don't know how they're going to fix it, and something tells me that they're going to have to do a fix. They have to fix, because you can't just flush 2 seasons down the toilet.
Yes.
You know, there's too much backstory, there's too much character development there.
That's why
they have to return to that point. Now, granted, this to me is basically they're straying off the path, you know, and then they're going to come back to the path of the show. But at the same time, they're creating certain things here that I like. I like
Lincoln. And Olivia.
Right, I like that character. You know, in the other world, he's kind of a jerk because he belongs to the other side, the bad guys, if you will. But if Peter returns to his normal world, they could search him out. They could search that guy out, because he's probably some guy tech working somewhere.
Well, I think he made an appearance in one of last season's episodes in
the real world,
in the regular Fringe world. But up until recently, I was under the assumption that the worlds were just reset through Peter's giving himself up.
Well,
and because if this is a completely different universe, then in a way it's almost like none of this stuff applies. However, if it is the universe that he intended to affect, then if he does somehow set things right again with, you know, he exists in it and everybody remembers everything, then you have other connections, like now Olivia and Lincoln may be in love with each other,
maybe
where
those
she
two
was
are starting something.
She was in love with Peter, and then of course there's Peter's child with the Olivia in the other universe.
And where is the other French guy that was in the original world that died, but then he shows up?
Charlie?
Yeah, the guy who had like the spiders in his neck or something. Yeah. He hasn't shown up in this world yet, has he?
Has he?
I don't think so.
Gee, I'm not sure now. I feel like he may be on some other show, though.
Oh, well, no.
That may be the reason.
No. Yeah, but I'm saying story-wise, they have not popped them up yet. See, this is a hard show to follow. You need a roadmap for this show.
With most of these J.J. Abrams shows, I think they play better if you watched them, say, on DVD, one after the other over a shorter period of time. Because, I mean, the season premiere was about 4 months ago now, so.
I do remember when I first started this season, I think the first couple of episodes, I kept feeling like I missed an episode. Because there was so many things happening that I was like, well, wait a minute. Where the hell are they? What's happening here?
Yeah.
You know, I understood, okay, Peter's not around. But not only was Peter not around, the world was different. And that's something that took me a while to understand, that we were in a different place now. It took me like 2 or 3 episodes to realize that this is weird. We're in a weird situation here. I'll tell you what the most, I don't know if you want to call it disgusting, but shocking moment of this season so far was when John Noble's character decided to give himself a lobotomy.
Oh, yeah. That was something.
And then you hear clink. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah, Walter is definitely more of a basket case in this universe.
He's really out there right
because
right
he
now.
hasn't had Peter for the last few years as a normalizing force in his life.
Yeah.
And I think also more this season is they're focusing on, just in terms of, you know, thematically, the dangers of science, and like maybe there are things that mankind shouldn't be messing around with.
Yeah, they're staying away from the parallel universe.
That was the episode, that kind of like the Reanimator type episode.
Yeah.
The guy who thought he could raise,
It's the freak of the week.
Exactly. So I like those themes.
It's going to be interesting to see where are they going to go for the rest of the season when they return.
And what's the deal now with Nina Sharp, who seems to be much more of a villain? We ended the mid-season with her knocking Olivia out, and I don't know, they injected her with something. And
does she have the funky arm, or doesn't she in this world? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
But she is up to some weird stuff in this world too.
But that came out of nowhere to me, so I didn't really know where that was going.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. This is one of these shows that got just pushed recently to Fridays, I believe.
Yes.
And traditionally that's the kiss of death. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it could do like an X-Files type of thing where it lives on Fridays for a long time. Yeah. But I'm always afraid for this show because it always seems to be on the bubble.
I would rather it end sooner in a good way than drag on for years in a bad way.
And get even more convoluted and confusing.
Yeah. But I mean, so far, I'm still enjoying it. And, like I said, the season started, left me cold, but by now, I'm into it again, and I like what's going on.
Now, you mentioned before, we have a Lost Connection. What is the final Lost Connection we're going to talk about?
The final Lost Connection we're going to talk about is Person of Interest, starring Jim Caviezel and Michael Emerson, who in the mid-season finale made a joke about breaking the space-time continuum, which I'm pretty sure was a Lost reference.
That's right. But it's also a Star Trek reference.
Is it?
Well, yeah, the space-time continuum, the whole thing about... don't mess with the timelines, blah, blah, blah.
And right before he makes that joke in that scene, Jim Caviezel picks up a book on the bookshelf called The Ghost in the Machine. And I know there were a lot of book references in Lost. I don't remember if that was one of them.
I don't know, but Ghost in the that's a big sci-fi thing.
It was one of the... so I thought that might have been a Lost reference, but the space-time continuum comment definitely was.
Again, this particular show, the big names involved, obviously J.J. Abrams is one of the producers of the show. Yeah. But it's also Jonathan Nolan, the brother of Christopher Nolan, who was one of the co-writers of Dark Knight and a lot of the Chris Nolan films. Mm-hmm. The show is a little bit of a derivative, if you think about it, of some of the concepts introduced in Dark Knight. The concept of being able to monitor a lot of people, electronically without them knowing through cell phones or all kinds of devices. And I think originally I had higher expectations for the show. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be a higher concept show.
Like sci-fi or just...
No. Hard to say.
Well, see, this is my feeling with Person of Interest. It's on CBS, which has had a lot of success with standalone procedural shows. Yes. At the same time, it's created by J.J. Abrams, who's all about serialized storytelling and fleshing out characters. So to me, this show has been a little uneven in that it's trying to kind of find that balance between the standalone stuff that CBS knows its audience loves with the more backstory type heavy stuff that J.J. Abrams likes to do. Right. And we have been getting little bits of Caviezel's backstory and Emerson's backstory, and I like those episodes especially.
For me, the arc, the mythology of the show, again, I love it more than the actual procedural stuff. Yes. The procedural stuff could be any cop drama.
Honestly,
fill in the blank.
You brought up the connection with Christopher Nolan and Batman. Essentially, Jim Caviezel is pretty much Batman without the cowl in this show, because he does things and shows up at things that Batman could do. And to me, that's the one part I have to suspend
And Emerson
my
is
disbelief.
Mr. Fox. He creates the technology and he gives them the tools and he goes to work.
So to me, that's where it stretches credibility once in a while. In just the fact that Caviezel can be here and then wind up there so quickly. Yeah. I mean, I just go with it. But
what I love the best about the show is when they go into the flashbacks and they're fleshing out his background. He's this tortured spy, secret agent, SEAL team, super soldier type of guy.
Yeah.
And they're giving you more of his background. All of a sudden now the cop that didn't seem to be that important of a character. Mm-hmm. It was a very cliche character, the cop hunting him down.
You're talking about Carter, not his contact.
Not the Weasley guy. But Carter, all of a sudden they gave her a military background where she's being fleshed out a little bit, which was interesting, especially in these last mid-season episodes. Yeah. And obviously Michael Emerson's character, another gigantic character that they're giving you bits and pieces of how he came about getting involved with whatever this project was and how he kind of grabbed it and ran solo with it. Apparently he had a partner that I'm sure that character is going to return to haunt them in some shape or form.
The character who I don't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure he was on Lost as well.
Everybody was on Lost these days.
Well, the thing I kind of like in a drama series is when they inject moral questions into it. And to me, my favorite episode of the season for Person of Interest was the one with Linda Cardellini where she was going to kill the guy who caused her sister to kill herself, and Jim Caviezel's character talked her out of it. And there was just that scene, he's telling her that, once she kills somebody, it's just going to change her forever. And the scene with the two of them in the diner was just really intense because you don't know which way it's going to go. And then the episode ends with him and the guy that she was going to kill in this beach house. And he's kind of threatening to kill this guy who promises that he'll reform if he lets him live. And it's just this kind of two-person back and forth. Caviezel's going to go back and forth. Will he kill him? Will he not? The justification for it, why it's a pro, why it's a con. And then the episode ends with you not knowing which choice he makes. And it just kind of leaves you as a viewer saying, what is the right thing to do here? What would you do? And I just love being on edge like that, not knowing.
That's part of the twist to the show, is the fact that every time a number comes up, you don't know if that's a good guy or a bad guy.
Yes.
And on a lot of these episodes, you have to go along with them throughout the whole story. And sometimes up until the last 5 minutes of the show, you might not know who you're dealing with, as in the episode of the mobster who's pretending to be a school teacher.
Elias.
And all of a sudden, at the last couple of seconds, they turn the character and he is the bad guy. And now he is at least for a couple more episodes, probably going to be a bad guy.
A recurring character.
Right,
yeah.
right. And
I'm guessing that's
going to
last at least for the season.
Again, he's a good actor. It's funny because I remember him
He
from
played
being
the father on Veronica Mars.
But he was also a comedic
Just Shoot
actor.
Me.
I've seen him do. Yeah, I've seen him
on Just
do.
Shoot Me.
Sitcoms. It's like, wow, he can actually do serious stuff and be kind of creepy.
Well, I think that was kind of good, and they cast him because you do expect him in a lighter role.
And that's the character he played at first.
Yeah.
He was kind of like a goofy school teacher.
Yeah.
But that was what he was pretending to be, which is great. Perfect. It works. The other thing about the show that I like is that, as you mentioned before, when it comes to violence, yes, they do have the typical shootouts, but sometimes there are episodes where, I remember one of the first episodes where the final shootout, you don't see it. They're inside like an apartment building lobby, and some people walk out, you're seeing the lobby from the outside, and you just hear gunshots, and you see the gun flash. You don't see who gets shot, and I think at the end you actually see him walking out, so you kind of say, all right, he got out, which means he killed all those other guys, but you never saw it.
Wait. For a while, I don't know if this has held up throughout, but in the early episodes, he shot people, but he never killed people.
I think now he's killing people.
It seems now that he is killing people,
Yeah.
but initially he deliberately
Shoot him in the
avoided
leg or
killing
stuff
people.
like that, yeah.
Exactly. So, which I think goes back to his CIA past. Like, he may feel he's killed enough, and he just doesn't want that weighing on his soul anymore.
Lately, he's been a little more willing to just kill the bad guy, if you will.
It seems that way, but I don't know. I mean, you're right. He did kill the guy who was going to kill Detective Carter.
Right. I guess he was too far away. And not only that guy, but the second time when they're in the parking lot and he's waiting for whoever's going to come down to try to kill him, he just shot him from far away and got to them.
Yeah.
There was nothing of, it was no this isn't the A-Team. You wound them. Everybody gets, no, the A-Team didn't even get wounded. They just shoot in the floor and everybody runs away. They don't do that anymore these days.
So now, for the next part of the season, I expect to get more of his CIA background. Because now Agent Carter knows that there's something going on with these people trying to track him down. But she
Right.
seems to trust him more because she did let him get away. Even though he
Right,
was
because she
severely
did
wounded.
turn him in, but then she let him get away. So it's kind of, and he understood that because when they looked at each other, he's like, "Okay, get out of here," and he let them go. And not only does she know him, she now also knows Michael Emerson's character.
That's right, Mr. Finch and
Which
Mr.
is
Reese.
dangerous because, like, when you have a character know so much information, traditionally what they do is they kill that character.
Right.
Because you can't have too much information.
Which is what
running
we were
around.
talking about in Once Upon a Time. So, but I think,
Oh, boy.
well, I'm pretty sure Caviezel and Emerson
Oh,
are
yeah.
signed on to
They're the
stay.
stars of the show, of
Whether
course.
Detective Carter lives beyond the season or the other, what's his name? The
Fusco?
other, Fusco, yeah.
Fusco,
whether he
yeah.
makes it beyond the season.
You figure when it comes to a character like Fusco, he might have disposable character. So if he dies, who cares? Because he's kind of like a dirtbag in a way. And
He's not. I
but
mean,
he treats
he's
him that way. He's always, he knows.
Yeah,
he's
yeah. But he's grown to be much more likable and seemingly
and you
honest.
don't know if he's not doing any weird stuff on the side.
He doesn't seem to be. I mean, like in his encounters with his former chief about letting Elias get to
That's right.
Detective
That's
Carter.
the other thing that they introduced that character of the former chief, who's apparently involved in some of these other things.
Well, I mean, right now they're setting up a chain of corruption that goes way beyond just a few bad.
and we
cops
don't know
and
what the
stuff.
deal with the CIA agent is. Were those two real CIA who came to just kill him? Or were those some kind of, rogue CIA group that has to silence him for XYZ reasons? Is this a
Well, I
sanction?
think it may be both.
Is it a sanctioned hit or isn't it?
And they made it sound like he killed his former partner in the CIA, that woman. But I'm guessing, based on what we saw of that woman in the flashback, she was
she had her
pretty
hands pretty
cold-blooded.
dirty. Yeah. So we have, these are 3 pretty good shows that hopefully will continue. I haven't heard anything about renewals.
Everything got picked up for the full season, I'm pretty sure.
See, that was the problem, that some of these shows you don't know, especially with new shows, sometimes they only give you half a season because they're afraid of what are the ratings like, and then they're green light the rest of the season. These shows, at least we know, are full season shows.
Last time I saw the ratings in Entertainment Weekly, Once Upon a Time was 12th, which should guarantee it,
That's a good show.
pretty good.
12th for the night? Or
No, 12th for the week.
For the week? Okay, that's much better. You mean it's behind TLC's, But no, that's pretty good. I don't know what Fox's numbers are for
to me, Fringe seems to be in the most danger. I don't know what the ratings are.
And Person of Interest, again, I don't know if it's winning the night or not. I doubt it.
I know ratings-wise that they've started factoring in DVR viewership, which I think would help Fringe.
Yeah.
But Person of Interest, I think, was doing fairly decently. So
yeah, but again, these are pretty surprising. They're different shows. The Person of Interest is not your typical cop show, that's for sure. Once Upon a Time, forget it. I don't think we've had anything this...
It's
Losty and fantasy. With Lost, even though it had a weird element to it,
was the real
almost
world.
Supernatural, it was all on the real world. You never knew what was going to happen with Lost. With Once Upon a Time, you at least kind of know, okay, they're dealing with this fairy tale, and you kind of know a little bit of the rules of the fairy tale.
Yeah.
So here you're bouncing back and forth between these two worlds. And Fringe, of course, it's just nutty. Anything could happen. You're dealing with interdimensional parallel universes, forget it. So let's just hope all these shows come back and that they have a good rest of the season.
Absolutely.
Well, I would like to thank Tony for joining us. Thank you, Tony.
Welcome.
And we will see you guys here next time on Geekfest Rants. Bye-bye.
Stop.